Clearing us live now for the Tuesday 2:30 Awesemo.com golf show. Last one of the year. Myself, Ben Raza, here with Fantasy Golf Man, Tim Frank. We're going to break down the RSM Classic. We're going to talk about Brendan Todd, obviously. Insane what's happening in the golf world. And we'll get some thoughts about the old off season. But I guess we'll start with Brendan Todd, Tim. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, man. He's like all of a sudden he's like one of the top 5 golfers in the world. Like, get him on the President's Cup team. I mean, I don't even know what to say at this point. Like, people were telling me, oh, you missed out at Bermuda. And it was like, and I looked back and it was like he had missed 3 cuts in a row. And then he played okay. I think it was in Houston, but he lost strokes, ball striking. And I was like, dude, he was not even on the radar at Bermuda. So I didn't feel bad about that. I feel really dumb about this one, though, because it was like, it's a great course for him. Obviously, he's made a huge turnaround. He, dusted the field at Bermuda, and then to just completely ignore him last week at like 100-1. And not only that, to talk people out of betting him. Thank God those DMs have not surfaced yet. Egregious on my part. But yeah, he's playing great. I don't know what else to say.
What about this week? 50-1.
I mean, shit, it's another great course. It's another terrible field. I mean, he's dialed in. I feel confident that he's going to play well. At this point, no, I'm not betting him just because I'm stubborn. But you got to think. To be dialed in for 8 straight rounds at another, this course is just perfect. We've seen now 3 in a row, if you count Bermuda, really similar courses. I have no doubt he's gonna play well this week. I don't think he's gonna win, but God, he's like just on a tear.
Crazy. Yeah, obviously Twitter was ablaze, mostly directed at you. Some funny things out there.
Oh yeah, shout out to Hatchman, who had the picture of Todd like FaceTiming with somebody right after the event, and he photoshopped my Twitter avatar on the phone. That was hilarious.
It's good stuff. Good stuff all around, but I'll bring it back. We'll rein it in. We got the RSM. I do want to say sponsors at Fantasy Draft. They stick with us, and we appreciate that. And, we encourage everyone to go sign up over there. The only place where you can play rake-free daily fantasy. 100% of the entry fees going to those large prize pools. Once again, running a big tournament in the NFL as well as the other sports. So if you haven't signed up, promo code AWESEMO, you get your trial, and go check it out because that money adds up quickly that you are saving. I also want to say it's never too late to get a different promo code. PGA Strategy is the promo code for our show. We got one, all one word. You get 50% off your first month if you use that. And like I said, yeah, this is the end of the golf season for about a couple weeks, and then we start for 9 months. So it really never ends. We're going to be retooling and bringing a lot of great content in front and behind the paywall. So we really encourage everyone to stop on in. We'll talk about that later, but what do you make of this is the Sea Island Mafia tournament, is it not?
It is, yeah. Like, just right off the top, we're ignoring local ties. Because there's like 80 guys that train and or live in Sea Island. There's another like 25 guys that went to University of Georgia or Georgia Tech. There's probably another like you can come up with some angle, like local angle for like literally every player in this field. So I'm not even going to touch on that because it's crazy, like how many guys are from the area or from Georgia or went to SEC schools. But yeah, so like tons of guys live here. 2-course rotation this week. I guess we should mention that. Primary course is a Seaside course, 7,000-yard par 70, really kind of reminiscent to Harbor Town, reminiscent a little bit to Mayakoba. A tight accuracy track, exposed to the elements. So they'll play around there. They'll play around at the Plantation course, which is 6,900-yard par 72. Super short, super easy, gives up a ton of eagles. So 1 round at each of those places and then back to the Seaside course for the last 2 rounds. But kind of for the purpose of handicapping this event, I'm just kind of thinking of it as we're playing 4 rounds at the Seaside course. It's really hard to kind of balance both courses. I don't think, the Plantation course is a little different, but really to try and take that into account is tough. So I'm kind of really similar to Mayakoba, looking at the accuracy guys, looking at the short hitters. You're going to have to make putts this week, short iron play. all the same stuff we were looking at last week, I think is applicable this week.
So there's a lot of bad things, in my opinion, about this time of the year for golf. We don't have strokes gain data. The fields are bad. Some of it is over in Asia. But the one good thing right now, if you play Bermuda and OHL and it's a super similar skill set week after week. And I think we have a good idea of what you need. And it's very similar to the recent form that you're going to see. So you can kind of buy on a guy and keep buying if you want to. I want to throw out something quick, and I think you'll agree, but I just want to ask you, if you're playing Showdown, just play the Plantation guys. I think that's a pretty smart and simple strategy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's an easier track. There's 4 par 5s instead of 2. And yeah, less exposed to the elements. If there is any wind, it's going to make a less of a difference at the Plantation course. So yeah, you gotta stack 6 guys at Plantation for Showdown. Definitely.
Because people won't, of course there's going to be a ton of people that do that, but there will be people that don't. And you can pick up right off the bat, make it easy on yourself. But this is, like I said, RSM Classic. It's a tournament we've seen a lot, and so many guys have so many ties. I'm with you. If they have some ties, that's great. But I mean, come on, everybody's got something, and for every guy, a local guy who plays great, there's 2 more that don't. So it is what it is. It's just a small piece of the puzzle for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for like trying to find these angles, trying to find the local ties. But when it's the majority of the field has some sort of tie to this area, it becomes kind of pointless. So I'm just ignoring that. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Really just similar skill sets the last 3 weeks. And, a lot of the weeks we say, oh, this course doesn't favor one thing or the other. But it's like we've had 3 courses right in a row that all favor the shorter hitters, all favor the accuracy guys. And that is good because I'm kind of lost. We haven't had strokes gain data since the Houston Open.
Crazy.
So it's kind of even pointless to look at and say, oh, the guy is gaining this many strokes on approach or this many strokes with the ball striking, because we've only seen a few rounds, and the last time we had it was 5-6 weeks ago. So it's really a tough event to handicap. Like you said, weak field.
It's weak. We'll get into it. We got Webb leading us off. It's not, it gets worse from there. I'll say that. I usually don't see him up top, but I could live with that. Then we get Billy Ho, Matt Kuchar, CH3, who is the champ. And I knew he was going to get a price bump. 10K Harris English. So what do you make of these 5? And then I specifically want you to talk about English because he's the hottest golfer, maybe besides Brendan Todd, on the planet right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out, I feel like in general, the guys are more expensive this week than they were last week, which leads me to believe that they're making this a weaker field, but it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. We have Webb Simpson at 9-1 last week. The favorites were all 18-1. We have Billy Ho at 14-1, Kuchar at 18-1. So I mean, typically guys are more expensive this week than they were last week, but it's kind of a similar strength of field, I would say. I mean, at the top, Billy Ho at 11K. I mean, he's playing well. He was in a playoff here a couple years ago. That just seems too expensive for me. I mean, Webb Simpson at 11.6 seems too expensive, but at least, we saw him at Shriners. He was good, T7. He's got a great course history here. He's got a 2nd, a 7th, a 3rd. Obviously, a perfect course fit for him at 9-1. I don't love that. I feel like that's a little bit inflated, but he has the most win equity in the field by a long shot when you look at Billy Ho at 14-1. So I guess I'm preferential to Webb all the way at the top. And I like English again this week, even though he's 10K.
Bad course history. That's the one thing that's interesting.
We don't care about course history.
That's right. That's the retort to that.
Imagine how expensive he was if he had a good course history. He'd be like 11.5 this week. But we can say he went to University of Georgia, so he's got some local ties there. Boom.
There it is.
I mean, he's played 5 events, and he's been T6 or better in 4 of them. I don't know. He's expensive, but the guy is just smashing. So I like him better than Charles Howell. I like him better than Billy Ho. I don't know. What do you think? Where are you on him?
So So I mean, there's red flags with all these guys. I think again in these weak fields, balanced is going to reign supreme. But that's notwithstanding. I feel a little more comfortable with Billy Ho than you do. I know the price is egregious. I just worry, and he is the best player in this field, but Webb has played once in 11 weeks. Now he played very well, and he's coming to a course that he loves, and I get that. I just, God, I'm weighing just what I've seen with Billy Ho a little more. He's playing well consistently. Now Harris English, as you mentioned, he's just churning in top tens, top fives, like basically automatically right now. But boy, it's not like this price is going to dissipate the ownership, in my opinion. People are going to continue to play him. They're paying it. He's paying it off week after week. So I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get over. I get it. There's really nothing to knock it unless you say that there's a reason he doesn't like this course. But I think that's more a product that he was just a terrible golfer in a lot of these stretches. Clearly, he's found something. So there may be bad data in the course results, dating back a couple of years. You've got guys like Kisner, Hadwin, Wise, Scheffler, all at a discount over a guy like English. I think I lean to them over him still.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. He's not, last week it was like, and he was really heavily owned, but to me, just in a vacuum, if you looked at everything, to me, it was like he was the best play on the board, and everybody else thought the same thing, so everybody played him. He's definitely not in that range this week. To me, there is some pause. He's not going to be as owned as he was last week, but yeah, 10K. It's not like we're just starting with English and going on like he's the free square or whatever. Not that we really have those in golf, but he seemed very obvious last week. Not as obvious this week. Boy, what about Kuchar? This seems like a great track for him, and he has an okay record here, but only one finish better than T22. He was T14 last week. He kind of seems under the radar, and you're getting $1,000 discount off of him compared to Webb when really they're almost identical players.
I think you're right. I think he's going to get kind of lost in the shuffle in the sense that Webb's the most expensive guy. Billy Ho, playing fantastic. CH3 is the defending champ, and Harris English we just talked about. Kuchar's the one, hasn't played a ton. OHL, wasn't great, wasn't awful. The course history, great, not awful. I don't think he's going to garner a ton of interest, and for that reason, I think you can do it. But man, it's another. Of course, at these prices, there's an opportunity cost. You start with Kuchar, you're probably not getting any of these other guys. Not that that's a huge deal considering about who we're talking with. When you can bump down, I mean, do you think it's crazy to start with Scheffler?
No, not at all. I mean, it's another week. And I said this at the top. I know last week we did not have a guy that was shorter than 18-1, and we have that in Webb at 9-1. But it doesn't feel as good playing Webb all the way at the top at 9-1 as it does playing a guy like Rory or somebody when he's 9-1 and maybe a better field. That number of 9-1 seems off to me. I don't feel as confident in that. So again, these are the events where you see some long shots contending. The guys at the top are not a lock to win, not a lock for a top 10. Yeah, and it's probably more optimal to just build balance rather than spending all that money for Webb Simpson, who's nowhere near as strong of a play as some of these other guys are in better events.
Yeah, I mean, I think in these type of fields, the sites have to structure how they structure in terms of pricing. And we talk about this. There's a couple different results from someone in the mid-range here, and they would be up there. Like Harris English is not a 10K golfer. He's playing like it. But guys like Rory, JT, even when they are playing bad, they don't suddenly drop to 7,500. That just doesn't happen. Here it's more fluid. So you can just kind of buy low on some of these mid-range guys. And yeah, maybe there's some red flags, but overall, to me, it's just the obvious choice. I just have to bring him up just because he's there. Do you have any interest in Noren?
No, not at all. He is just, I'm not sure. He just went on that run. I don't know how long ago was it now? 2.5 years ago, where he won like 5 events on the European Tour. Came over, played great at the beginning of the season on the PGA Tour, but he just hasn't done anything in such a long time. And there's some strong plays, in this range. You mentioned Scheffler. his price just doesn't seem to change. That's very strange. Like, what was he? I think he was 9,100.
Yep.
Last week, and he finished T18, and that's coming off a third in Bermuda. He's been playing great. So yeah, I like him. Kisner, I think people will see that course history, but for me, I just really try to avoid it sounds strange. I just try to avoid guys that have just this incredible course history, because I'm not a firm believer in it. And I feel like all it does is raise the guy's price, raise the guy's ownership. At 9,800, you can find a guy for, like you said, 1,000, 1,500 cheaper, very similar players down there that just don't have that course history. That, he just seems a little bit inflated to me.
Do you say the same thing about your boy, Zach Johnson? Kind of showed some life there. 2 straight very good showings here. This is a good course for him. I think we would acknowledge that. I don't love the price, but yeah.
I would never, ever play Zach Johnson over Scotty Scheffler. I just could not do it. I can't get there. Okay. If we're going to go, I'll go one more down. I like Russell Knox a lot at 8,900.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. Is last week he had a great course history, and I think he was 9,300. He's one of the fewer guys that got cheaper in this field, and I think it's all due to the course history. Here, he doesn't have a finish better than T27 in 4 events, but there's no reason why that should be. I mean, this is a very similar course to Mayakoba. This is a very similar course to all the places where he plays well, like Harbor Town, Honda, those type of tracks. So he got cheaper, and he didn't play poorly. I mean, he was T33 last week. But to me, it seems like you're getting a couple $100 value on Knox at a great course, and he's one of the fewer guys that he didn't play poorly last week, and he got cheaper this week than he was last week, and he'll be less owned.
Yeah, I don't mind Knox at all. It's funny. To me, Brian Gay is the one who looks out of place. I know this is a good course for him. I know he's playing pretty well, but man, that's a pretty premium tag for a guy that I know he's a world-class putter, and I know he excels on these shorter tracks. I would much rather play Russell Knox. And I'll drop one more. I would much rather play Dylan Fratelli, who I know that his game, I say it every week, it's a little all over the map. But last week he did it with the short game. The irons were, from what I can tell, a little off. He still holds it together, comes in reasonable 11th. A guy that can get crazy hot with any club. Just pedigree-wise, I'm backing those type of guys over some of the people that maybe are getting what you always call the course history bump.
Yeah, I mean, the more I look at these events, the less I want to play guys that are just crushing the course history department. It just inflates the price, and I mean, I'm not going there. What about putting god Denny McCarthy?
Yeah, well, life comes at you fast. I don't know exactly what he's been doing, but it doesn't seem like he's gaining 10 strokes putting these weeks. Gonna need to do that. This is elements of a putting competition. I'm going to mention Bo Hostler when we work down there. But, Brendan Todd took over the Twitterverse, and I know this is NFL season. But, truth be told, I wasn't paying a ton of attention. I've made it clear that I've toned down my volume a bit during the swing season. I had a couple lineups out there. One pretty good one. Had some guys, and then I looked, and I saw Russell Henley miss the cut. And I saw he shot 77, and I figured, typical Russell Henley. It was only after that I learned that he was assessed an 8-stroke penalty. 2-stroke penalty for 4 consecutive holes for some type of violation with the ball. I'm assuming that you saw that.
He had I'm not even 100% sure what happened. He had a different type of ball in his bag that he was not aware of. And as far as I know, the ball that he had in the bag was conforming to the tour rules, but I don't know what the rule is about you having to state I'm really confused. He had some sort of odd ball in his bag that he didn't know of, and he didn't declare at the beginning of the round, something like that. So yeah, he incurred a 2-shot penalty for like 4 or 5 holes.
Yeah, 4 holes in a row. So I just want to make people aware that if you glance over it, it may present I'm not going to say it's going to be a huge discrepancy, but there will be some people who are just looking at the results and see, oh, Henley missed the cut again. He was rolling. He was 6 or 7 under. He was going to make that cut. And now he sits at 8,500 on DraftKings, a reasonable price over on Fantasy Draft. I'm kind of interested in going right back to him. Him and JT Poston are guys that I feel very comfortable with in that range.
Yeah, I mean, he was playing well, so people that weren't really paying attention are going to miss that. Great history here, but this is a great track for him as a guy that's won at Honda, won at Sony. Poston's interesting to me because he's played here 3 times and he's missed the cut all 3 times. And I really thought he would be a good play, but I also thought he'd be cheaper. It's like I thought they would bump that price down a little bit due to just horrendous course history, and was T41 last week, which wasn't awesome. It's kind of seemed like everything would line up for him to be cheap and be a great play, but 8,400 I don't think he's a bad play, but he's a little more expensive than I thought he would be, having 3 missed cuts here.
So we got an interesting range as we work down kind of into the flat middle. Feel free to talk about Bryce Garnett, or we can pretend he doesn't exist. Then we've got Vaughn Taylor and Jim Furyk. 2 guys that are not going to wow you, but we know what they do. Kind of similar games. Vaughn Taylor coming up the runner-up finish. What do you make of them before we dip down to a couple other guys that I want to discuss?
I mean, they just seem still too expensive. I mean, Vaughn Taylor played well last week, but prior to that, 41st, 60th, 60th, miscut. That kind of came out of nowhere. You know, he's a short hitter. It's a fine course for him. Great course for Furyk. You know, he's played here 4 times as a 6th, a 3rd, and an 11th. But just another guy. I mean, it's hard for me to pay 8,100 for him, you know, and I mean, it's like he doesn't play very often. It's not like when he plays, he's amazing, you know, T55, T17, that's all I have him for in the last 12 weeks. So yeah, I don't think I'm going there. I'll go back down and just let Brian Harmon crush my soul again at 7,900. I think I'm just going to keep going back to Harmon until he does something.
So a couple of things I'll say real quick, and I want to expand on that. I'm with you more often than not. I'm not going to chase Vaughn Taylor. Furyk, I think, as always, pretty reasonable play in cash. I expect the middling finish, but I don't know how often he really pays off, to be honest. But friend of the show in chat, Kenny, mentioned the Brian Harmon train. God, this is another great course for him. At OHL, he was not good. But you're willing to go back to the lefty who we know, Bermuda, get hot with the putter, really sets up for him at a reasonable price tag.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I feel kind of like a broken record. And when you say it 3 weeks in a row and you're like wrong all 3 weeks, you kind of seem not that smart.
That's what the show's about.
I mean, he's $2,000 cheaper than Kisner. I mean, Kisner, I would say slightly better. He's not $2,000 better. It's like they were both bad last week. You know, Harmon has a decent course history here. He's got some miscuts, but he has a 4th and a 10th. Yeah, I don't think people are going to play him. I mean, he wasn't that owned last week, and he didn't play well. But in this range, I prefer him. I definitely prefer him over guys like Vaughn Taylor, Jim Furyk, Bryce Garnett. I mean, easily. You'd have to get up to Poston or Henley before I'd find a guy that I would play over Harmon. And now you're still talking $400, $500, $600 difference.
What do you make? Because I'm in total agreement with you. But you have guys right with him in Sabatini, Adam Long coming off a runner-up, Austin Cook, who was 1 here. Are those names more interesting to you, or do you still have Harmon above them?
I mean, I have no idea. Like, Cook at 7,800 is crazy. Because he was not good last week, and we kind of pegged him as a GPP play because he's a little bit boomer bust, good course history, but he was bad last week at 6,700. He played terrible. Now he's 7,800 because he's played here twice as a win and a T11. I don't get that. I really like Adam Long. I think he's one of the best plays on the board this week. He was runner-up last week. And then if you look back at his form, you see a 51st and a 46th on the Asian swing, and that wasn't great, but he was really, really good at the beginning of the fall swing, T23, T23, T14, with really, really good ball striking over those finishes. So, you know, I don't know, maybe going to Asia just wasn't his cup of tea or what happened, but he was really good to start the season off, and then, you know, back in the States, played great again. So I like him, and I think he's too cheap at 7,800.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy that he's shown when he won, it was like, oh, this is a guy, he's going to have status. He's just going to be in the bottom of every tournament for like 2 years, and we're going to have to endure. And that has just not been the case. He has shown he definitely can compete, can score great. The price is very reasonable for me. Probably not a surprise. Harry Higgs. Once again, I will be going back to Harry Higgs. Followed up Bermuda, where he was runner-up. He was fine. He came in 33rd at OHL. I know that he does a lot of it with the distance and specifically gaining off the tee, and that is not exactly the formula here. But this is someone that, again, this tournament, you mentioned at the top of the show, it's wide open. First-time winners, not a lot of win equity. And Harry Higgs is a guy, when you get him right, I think we're going to get paid off more often than not in terms of really good placement points. So at a reasonable tag in a range, to me, is wide open. Like, as much as I like Harmon and guys like that, I acknowledge that there's a lot of risk with all these guys. Don't see a ton of super safe plays on the board. And it's that time of the year. Higgs, and then I want to break it down to we got Chris Kirk, Streelman, Joel Dahman range. What do you make of those guys?
Yeah, I think Dahman's a good play at 7,600. He was sixth last week. He had a T9. Boy, where was that? I think, was it at the Shriners?
Who, Dahman?
Yeah, he's got a couple good finishes on the fall swing. I think it's a decent course for him. And he's another guy, I think, just not that much of a difference in talent between him and some of the guys that are significantly more expensive than him. Bryce Garnett, Vaughn Taylor, guys like that, just not much of a difference in talent level. So I would take the $600 savings, go down to a guy like Dahman. Chris Kirk, I mean, I think you have to consider him. He was T33 last week, and that was his first event in a long time, coming back off of the layoff. Great. He's a good course fit, great course history. He has 2 T4s. He has a win here. He has a 15th and 18th. You're getting a discount on him. I mean, he's for the overall talent level, he's just too cheap, and we didn't really know what to expect coming off the long layoff. But T33, not bad way to kind of knock the rust off of.
It was hard to say anything, but besides that, you were impressed by a guy. I had no expectations, but he played pretty well, and he's going to a course that clearly we know this suits his game. That's not up for debate. I like Dahman over him. This is where I get into trouble. This is the part of the show where it takes a turn for the worse. Beau Hossler has made 4 straight cuts. He's a putting wizard. We know that. This course, it's pretty easy. You keep it in play. You hit these greens. They're pretty generous greens. Got to make a lot of putts. That sounds like a Beau Hossler wheelhouse. Now, I know this is in Texas, and I don't know how good he really is, to be honest, but I kind of have some interest in what I think will be a low-owned Beau Hossler.
Oh, yeah, he'll be low-owned. I don't think anybody wants to.
That's step one.
He seemed to have lost some of his luster. He kind of felt like a guy that people would just keep going to, kind of like a Siwoo Kim type player, where it's like you never knew when it was coming, but you were pretty sure that once every like 5 or 6 weeks he was going to have a great week. And he seemed to do that for a while. But it's been kind of, he hasn't really flashed very much. But I'm with you. I mean, this is a course that, not difficult. It's going to present a lot of birdie opportunities, and guys that can get super hot with the flat stick are going to be at the top of the leaderboard. Theoretically, sets up well for him, but I don't think I can get there. I'd prefer Dahman. I'd prefer Kirk. Your boy Brian Stewart.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
7,400. That's not expensive. T23 last week. Another guy who, just hit the fairway, hit the green, and maybe he can get hot with the putter because we've seen it before with him.
Oh boy. I mean, this is where
you're not buying it.
No, I'm definitely. I mean, for me, it's pretty simple. If I'm going to take, I see some similarities between those two guys. He is a noted good Bermuda player, but I'd rather take a shot with Beau Hossler. But Stewart, when you're mitigating his worst club, which is off the tee, you can make a case there. But then you work down, and it's an interesting range. We've got guys like Siwoo Kim. We've got guys like Robbie Shelton, who, after a little surge there, kind of slowed down. Kyle Stanley's a big name. Cameron Tringale. I mean, Peter Uihlein is not a big name. He's barely a name at this point. But we do have people. This is where we get to, you're going to have to take some of these guys to fill out the back end of your roster. Did anyone stand out in the low 7K range for you?
No, this is a pretty bad range for me. There's a few guys cheaper than this that I would play. If I had to take stabs in this range, it'd be Chappell at 7,100, who, I mean, really hasn't done anything, but just the talent level for 7,100 in this field is good, plus good course history, a second and an eighth. But you're really not paying for that course history. I don't mind good course history as long as you're not paying like an extra $2,000 for the guy. So Chappell, don't mind as a stab. Same thing with Mitchell. I don't like the course fit at all, but he's just another guy who can score, who's really good on Bermuda. And I didn't think the Honda was a good fit for him at all, and he won there. So only difference between here and Honda, I would say, is there the winning score is like 9 under. Here it's going to be like 20 under. But for 7K, if you're just taking a shot, I'd rather take a shot on a guy who's a Bermuda specialist who can score, especially at the Plantation course. They're going to give up eagles, so he's got some opportunities there. I would take a stab with Keith Mitchell.
He is a guy that I feel pretty strongly saying that I'll probably have some exposure, particularly on Showdown, because he should tear apart the Plantation. I worry a little about him. Now, he showed Bermuda, he can get hot with that putter. His Florida swing was incredible, but man, in a vacuum, I don't know if I really want to go there. I just want to bring up this name because I did Pat Mayo's show yesterday. We did it without pricing, which was wild. Go check that out if you want some more. He mentioned David Hearn as a possible flyer. He's made 5 out of 6 cuts. Not great finishes, but he was very good. Top 10 in Bermuda, flat 7K. And it's a guy that, truth be told, wasn't on my radar. But the more I looked, I actually don't mind it as kind of a, part of a GPP portfolio on the bottom half of these lineups.
Of course, Pat is touting the Canadian.
Well, it comes with the territory.
No, I don't like. I mean, yeah, Hearn's like the 4 condom play at 7K.
Zach Johnson.
Well, yeah, I guess I like him more than Johnson because he's $2,000 cheaper. But I mean, it's just really hard to see him getting to the top of this leaderboard. I think the course fit is fine. The course history is okay. He's playing okay. But I think I'd like a little more pop for 7K.
Do you feel the same way about, then we can move on. So Cameron Tringale is another guy. He's making cuts, pretty much paying everyone off. He's been a cash viable setting. I worry a little bit about his ownership relative to, honestly, his risk here. What do you make? He cooled off a bit, 66 last week at OHL.
Yeah, it's really hard for me without seeing strokes gain stats. I mean, some of these guys, it's like I was on Tringale a lot because I would just kind of ignore the finishing position, look at the approach game, which was great, and keep plugging and playing. Now it's like the only thing we have to go off is finishing position. So I see T66. That doesn't do a lot for me. Yeah, again, I would just rather take a shot with a boomer bust guy like Chappell or Mitchell.
Fair enough. I'm just looking real quick because Tringale is someone that so I have he was 79th in driving accuracy last week, 71st in putts per GIR. Doesn't look really great.
That's not good.
Not good. His irons were pretty good, but again, he's going to have to correct that to hang in a field like this where the cut, I mean, I'm not throwing out numbers, but I would expect it to be pretty low. It's an easy course, especially with the Plantation being one of your first 2 rounds.
Yeah, for sure. Those guys are going to tear up the Plantation course.
They really are. Before we dive in, I just do want to reiterate, chat, we love you hanging out with us. It's been an awesome year. I've had a ton of fun, even though it's been incredibly frustrating, and I'm going to dive into that during the off season. I definitely plan to review my own play, look for some things, plug some leaks, see where maybe I just didn't run as pure as I think I should all the time. But in the meantime, we do appreciate you guys watching us. If you can subscribe, hit the like button to the video. It's a huge difference for the company and for us. Helps keep the light on and keep the show in front of the paywall. So do that for us. We appreciate it. And if you guys have any suggestions, we're going to have some off time. Send it to me and Tim. If you're in Slack, just DM us, harass Tim on Twitter of what you want to see for the show. That's what he's here for. So we're always incorporating new feedback into what we want to put out there.
I've already done my look back at the season to try and figure out what went wrong. And really it was just variance. Any bad week I had was just variance.
Process was good.
Yeah. that's it. Really couldn't have done anything better. So
that's what I would say, except I played Griot in crucial spots and then I lost. And that's really what it comes down to. Don't play him.
Like any good tout, it's just variance.
That's what we do on this show. You're not going to play Patrick Rodgers, are you?
No.
Okay.
So I'm like, what the hell happened to Patrick Rodgers? Because do you remember like 4 years ago?
Oh yeah.
Where the places he was a bomber who could not putt. That was like his MO. And now all of a sudden it's like he plays well at short courses and putts the lights out. I haven't seen what he's done recently with the putter, but it's like it's a complete 180 on like where you would want to play. Before it was like, oh, he's a California guy, he's a bomber, and he can't putt. And now it's like fire him up at the RSM. It's
bizarre. So last year, just to be clear, he was second here, but he gained 9 strokes putting. That'll do it. Patrick Rodgers is a guy that is an anomaly. And truth be told, I was in a zone of all zones a couple years ago in golf, and I nailed him at the JDC of all places. Him and Bryson, I believe, were battling it out. And then, again, he gained 9 strokes putting there. This is a guy that it's very hard. His irons have been horrendous. I think people are going to get caught up maybe in that runner-up. I'm staying far away from him. Don't know if he'll be popular, but if he is, I caution people to just take a double look into those numbers.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going there.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, well, now we'll open it up. We got the cheapies. We've got still some names. Luke List is down here. Doc Redman, Streb. I have a couple of egregious plays that I'm going to get to, but what do you make as the last type of guy in?
Yep. So you mentioned Streb at 6,800. Nothing great, but I just think for the price is pretty decent. He was T14 last week, so that was solid. His 5 starts in the fall swing: 14th, 35th, 28th, miscut, 23rd. You're not going to blow your doors off, but that's solid. And he has one here. I think just 6,800. I think that's pretty decent. Bo Hogue at 6,700. He was 20th last week. You're laughing at me. 20th last week. 11th at Bermuda. We said right at the top, we have 3 very, very similar courses. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what type of course Bo Hogue plays well at. But he's played well at this type of course the last 2 weeks. I think for 6,700, you can do a lot worse. And then I just have the play of all plays. I need a couple minutes on this one.
All right. Do you want me to say my play of all plays?
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you give yours?
I assume you're not going to like this. I like Maverick. 6,800. He's starting to make some cuts last week. He was fantastic with the driver in terms of accuracy. Didn't have to do anything crazy with scrambling his putting. Just hold it steady. If he can take that formula from what he's seen, now he played in both Bermuda and Mayakoba. Not great, 35th and 26th. But you know what? For 6,800 and a reasonable price over on Fantasy Draft, that's going to work. And this guy is coming in 5 straight made cuts. I'm back in Maverick. The amateur pedigree is coming to fruition finally.
So I'll be honest, was not even on the radar. But hey, a lot of times we do this show and you guys that I wasn't thinking, I'm like, yeah, I kind of missed him. I'll just say this. I would much rather take a shot with him, young guy, up and coming guy, has a bunch of amateur pedigree. Take a shot with him rather than playing, Fabian Gomez or Stewart Sink, or maybe even Streb for that matter, just a guy who you feel like you're just locking in a T25 at best. Take a guy that has some upside. Yeah, I mean, McNeely was a guy who, honestly, we kind of thought bigger things would be happening with him. A little bit Hassler-esque, but yeah, last year on the web.com tour had some really high finishes, didn't win, a second, a third, a ninth. Yeah, I don't mind him. I don't know if I'm going to play him, but I'd rather take a shot with him than some old dusty guy.
Same. Clearly not. I want to be clear. Not a cash guy. I prefer Streb in that situation if I had to. But all right, the moment people are waiting for, what do we got going on here?
I just said don't play an old dusty guy. I'm telling you, 6,600 Boo Weekly.
Oh God,
dude. Okay. Just listen to this. So he was T21 at Houston, gained 10.1 on approach. goes to Bermuda, and I swear to God, I thought he was a lock at Bermuda. He was 150-1. He went 66, 66. So he was one shot back after 36 holes. He fired a 74 on Saturday, and then he fired another 66 on Sunday. 3 of the 4 rounds in Bermuda were 66. I like him. This is a perfect course for him. If you look at his shot link data, only 8 measured rounds, plus 0.6 off the tee, plus 1.4 on approach. I'm telling you, this is it. He's won twice at Harbour Town. He's won once at Colonial. He has a second at Valspar, a second at Honda, and a third at Zurich. Those are his 6 best finishes for his career. All of those courses are literally almost identical to this one.
So everything you just said is very fire information. And I get it. And I like it. The one thing, and you said this already with Keith Mitchell, that I see as a difference between basically all the courses you mentioned in this is he can't miss all the 9-footers here and hang on.
I hear you. I definitely hear you. But Harbour Town, the winning score there gets, and he's won there twice. Granted, it was in like,
though, right?
It was in like 2005. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right about that, but I'm telling you, I'm playing him. I don't care. It lines up if you can read the tea leaves correctly. It's not right out in front of you like it is, in the middle of the year where we have all this pretty strokes gain data just running right up. Do yourself a favor. 150-1. I mean, it's easy money.
Yeah, there it is. The ball striking numbers do not lie. I'll put it like this. He stands out. When you run the numbers, he legitimately jumps off the page. But on the flip side, his putting numbers also jump off the page. You could do a lot worse than him. I do worry about if the winning score is north of 20 under, I think that really hurts a guy like that. But again, for DFS purposes, he finds the weekend. You just got to hope he makes a couple timely putts here and there.
366s in Bermuda. 366s.
That'll work. That will work.
I mean, he ran into the Todd Buzzsaw on Saturday, and he just melted and shot a 74.
He's better than Bill Haas. What can I say? Bill Haas is dust.
Haas is terrible.
It's really bad. Anybody else before we get to a couple other things, and then eventually we bounce on out of here? Chat throughout someone like James Hahn. The number, the price is very low. I don't really have much to say, honestly. We haven't seen him a ton. He came back from injury. Don't have a ton of measured rounds, of course. Do you have any interest there?
I am kind of a sucker for James Hahn just because he's a guy that can come from literally nowhere. We saw him do it at the Wells Fargo, miss like 8 cuts in a row and then win. Like super boomer bust, kind of like a Scott Stallings type. But the places where James Hahn has 2 wins, and it was at Riviera and Wells Fargo, and I think you can make some comparisons. So those 2 courses being super driver heavy, not an easy course, longer course, really just exact opposite of what we're looking at here. I don't mind taking shots with James Hahn no matter what the form is, because we know when he's on, he can win. But the places he's won is just totally different than this week.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Similar, chat's just throwing a couple names out. Hudson Swafford, I would say the same thing. I don't think this is the right course for him.
He didn't play forever, and then he played in France on the European tour.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know.
I thought he was hurt. I don't know what was going on with him. But dude, if you're not going to end this season by going the last 2 weeks without touting Bermuda Ben Martin, especially coming off a T20.
So
I'm ashamed of you.
That is pretty shameful. I'll say this. One of the problems I have with this week relative to these guys, it's a double-edged sword. I think win equity is so dispersed. You could see anyone, you mentioned Boo Weekly. I know you're somewhat tongue-in-cheek. It's wide open for that type of player. Okay, fine.
There's no tongue-in-cheek.
So stone cold lock. The problem is for DFS, I don't know how often you need to reach because I don't love Webb up top. You start with someone like Scotty Scheffler, you don't need Bermuda Benny or anyone down here, and that's just a lineup construction issue. Tonight, me and Jason Roslin at 8:30 Eastern will be talking specific lineup construction and answering your questions. So, if anyone tries to build, come back, and we're happy to break it down with you. I just don't know how often I'll get to these guys. Now, I will say that Ben Martin did show some life at Mayakoba, and he is Bermuda Benny, and he's the man. But I just don't know how often I'm going to have to dig for these real cheap guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, I think sometimes people build lineups and they're like, click Bermuda Benny first, and then you paying down doesn't do you any good if there's nobody to pay up for.
Correct.
And yeah, I think
you funnel yourself to a specific build by accident sometimes. People need to be aware of that. That's one of the most important things, especially with golf. Be cognizant, especially if you're building by hand, of what you're doing. Because if you naturally click in someone like that, you're going to be like, oh, I have my average salary is like 9,300. Well, now I can take Webb. And it's like, well, hold on. I'm not saying Webb's a bad play. I'm just saying make sure you know what you're funneling to, and you can still build unique. But I 100% am in line with you on that. We only have a couple minutes left. I just have one name because you may know more about this guy than I do. Do you know anything about Scott Harrington?
No, not really. Besides, wasn't he really good like 2 weeks ago? A few weeks ago? I feel like the name popped in something I ran.
Second at Houston.
There we go. What's his price? Yeah, you completely caught me off guard with this guy.
6,700. He's made 5 out of 6 cuts. Again, I don't know a ton about his game. I've just what we've seen. I've seen his name thrown out a bit as a cheapie that you could possibly go to.
But he's still not that cheap. I mean,
no.
I think there's other playable guys here outside of the T2. I mean, T53, T72 the last 2 weeks. It's not like you really backed up that showing at Houston phenomenally. Obviously, I mean, you're already playing Boo, so I don't really know if you need to play Boo and Harrington.
And Maverick.
Yeah. I would definitely, I'd play Maverick McNeely. I'd play Streb over Harrington. I'd play Bo Hogue. But
yeah.
Boo's winning, so it's kind of like, you might not need to go anywhere else down here.
There's some.
What happened to Andrew Landry?
Yeah, it's amazing. Andrew Landry's a guy that, boy, when we're in Texas and other places, he's like a dark horse to win. He's won, and boy, did it go south. There's a couple guys like that, and that just speaks. I'm glad you actually said that. I think that to tie it all up, I think that speaks to how fast these prices could change. Andrew Landry could have been 9,200 in this field under different recent form. He really could have. And you just have to wonder where these guys, how wildly they deviate. The top end of them is the same. It's just how consistent they can do it.
Him and Sepp Straka, it's like, I don't know like that guy, which just seemed like a lock at the beginning of the fall series. And
Mackenzie Hughes.
Yeah.
I actually like Mackenzie Hughes in theory here, but I'm not going to go there. I will give one last dark horse. And I mentioned this yesterday. Tyler Duncan is a project of mine, and these are the type of courses that I picture him playing well at. He's made 2 straight cuts. The problem is, as we've talked about, I think it's an unnecessary play. If you want to use him maybe in like the best ball, you're trying to beat 100,000 people, I get it. But more often than not, you just don't need to take that risk in this field. So I'll leave it at that with him, but that's really all I got in terms of the cheapies.
Yeah, I mean, like we've already said, not a lot of reason to go down here. I think we outlined a couple guys that are playable, none of which besides Boo Weekly would be like, an all-in type of play. But just sprinkle a couple guys down here.
I just want to clarify, chat, for you. Tim is a smart man. He knows that we have the off season. So if this goes south, by the time January comes around, nobody's going to remember this. But we will check the tapes at Sony. Did you bet anyone else besides Boo Weekly?
No, not yet. I don't know. I've thought about the 2 that I'm contemplating are Harmon and Long, both at 66 to 1. Similar, I guess, different reasons. Harmon's more of like a long-term form play, course fit type of play. I just think he's a better golfer. Long, I just keep going back to that great start he had to the fall swing where the ball striking was really good, and then he bounced back this week. But don't I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get there. If you love closing line value, I guarantee Harris English. He's a terrible bet at 28-1, but he'll close at probably 20-1 because I think people will continue to bet him. But
that speaks more to the public than
exactly.
You're beating that closing line and you're still getting a bad line, in my opinion. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time.
Well, that was like last week. I think he ended. I bet him at 50-1, and he closed at like 28-1 or something ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. But we do preach closing line value, and it is a quick little plug for me. College basketball has started, college football is winding down, but there's still plenty of going on. I have articles posted on both, and we do have a sports betting channel where we talk some games, talk some lines, nothing too crazy, but it is fun, and it can help you with DFS, just understanding how Vegas incorporates it. It matters in ownership, it matters in leverage. So we encourage people to get on in there when you join our Slack chat. But it's been a fun year. Do you have any final thoughts for the RSM before we leave the people?
Yeah, I mean, this is not the most predictable event. It's the last event of the year. It's a weak field. It's played at a 2-course rotation. We don't have shot link data from the last couple weeks. So, this is, probably not the week to just empty the clip. This is a really, in my mind, an unpredictable event. But I like it. I like the course. I like courses like this. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, don't feel like you need to go out in a blaze of glory at the RSM Classic.
Please don't do that. I'll echo all of it. I'm glad we have Shot Tracker back. It's a decent event to close the year, but you know what? Golf to me is much better when you can build up to something. When you have week after week, you have strokes gain data, you can interpret it, and we just don't have all the pieces of the puzzle here. So we're going to get after it. Like I said, I will be back tonight, 8:30 Eastern with Jason Roslin, talking lineup construction, ownership, those type of things. And then going forward, like I said, we're going to use the offseason to do some things, add some features to the site to help everyone going forward. Because I tell you what, DFS golf, I think, changes wildly week to week. Some of the things that are commonplace now a couple of years ago were unknown. And in a couple of years, that will be the same case. So for everyone, like I said, thanks to Fantasy Draft. Thanks for everyone for watching week after week. We really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, find me and Tim in Slack or on Twitter. Good luck, everyone. I'll be back tonight, and we will be back next season for the Sony Open. Take care.